started out in secondary education with my college undergraduate degree and actually did my practicum, not a student teaching, but that initial practicum that you do at Lincoln East. And I ended up, my cooperating teacher, I can remember 20 some odd years later, her name was Deb McGinn, and she happened to be in a special education class, and it was a remedial English class is actually what it was. No, it wasn't special education, it was remedial English. And I remember walking into the classroom, I would have been all of 19 at that point in time, and so not much older than some of the students that were in the classroom. And for a girl kind of fresh off the farm in a small town, it was a pretty scary scene for me. There were quite the different demographics. We had the kind of stereotypical bubbly blonde teenage cheerleader in there. We had a young man who was dressed from head to toe in goth, the shaved head, the cross, the ponytail, the long coats, the riding boots. There were several kids in there who were learning English as a second language. And what I found is I fell in love with those kids. And I loved sitting down working one-on-one with them. I loved hearing their stories. Not only the stories that they're writing as an English class, but their backstories. What had brought them to the point that they were where they were now. The young man who was dressed all in goth and was taller than me and bigger than me and kind of scary looking, wrote the most beautiful, soulful poetry that I had ever seen. And I thought to myself at that point in time, I didn't know if I wanted to be a teacher anymore because I knew that I wanted to be able to work more one-on-one with kids, teenagers specifically. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I knew that I wasn't going to be satisfied standing in the front of a classroom of 20, 30, or 40, depending on the school system. I knew that I wanted to work one-on-one, but I also knew I didn't want to go into special education. So I continued to kind of flounder through the education department, and then one day, I don't even know what the news story was, but there was a news story on, and some guy was being interviewed, and he was talking about how he was helping some trauma, something had happened within Omaha, and how he was going in this kind of crisis recovery and working with these teenagers. And I thought, that's what I want to do. So it was from that point I figured out that what I wanted to be was mental health counselor, and I wanted to specialize with adolescents. So on to graduate, so I changed my major with only student teaching left. All I had to do was a year of student teaching and I would have graduated. I switched my major and went into psychology as a bachelor's degree, ended up at Grace University for my master's degree. And I remember sitting in class one day listening to my professor talk, and I don't remember what class it was, but we were talking about addictions. And I remember, with all of my wisdom of 21 years at that point in time, speaking up and saying, well, I will never work with anybody with addictions, especially adults, because they just need to grow up, be adults, take care of their kids, move on with life. I don't get it. So I can give kids a pass, okay, because, peer pressure, maybe there's a few struggles at home, but these adults, they just need to get their act together. So my professor looks at me and laughs and says, Kim, whatever you do, do not treat addictions when you become a therapist. I said, no problem. Well, anybody would like to guess where my first real job as a therapist was? I started out at a residential treatment facility for adults and children, long term. At the time, it was a 9 to 12 month program. And I absolutely fell in love with the concept of addiction recovery and that family preservation and working with the families on how do we recover as a family through this trauma of addiction being in our home. I was at that facility for 5 years. I worked with both the adults and the youth. And to this day, that is my passion. I think one of the reasons that I fell in love with it was because there's a history and there's a story to everything that everybody does. As Carrie pointed out, all behavior has purpose, and there's a reason. You all got to hear Amy's story today, and well, I'm sure sitting there you can understand that it was quite a story, and it takes a lot to be able to share the stories that Amy shares. What maybe you don't understand is the tremendous courage and bravery and strength that it takes to walk the road that Amy walked. So I'm so thankful that she was here and that she was willing to share her story, because we need more people like that that can come out and share that story and help people understand that there's more to Amy. I'm kind of using you as an example, Amy, sorry. There's more to Amy than just meth use. There was more to Amy than just trouble at school. There was something going on. The very concept of trauma-informed care is understanding that there is a story and a history to what somebody is doing. If you remember nothing from the 90 minutes that I'm up here, the one phrase that I would want you to walk away with and remember is, it's a change in concept. Instead of looking at someone and saying, what is wrong with you? You take a step back and you wonder, what happened to you? What is precipitating the behaviors that you are demonstrating? And it doesn't have to be just in the classroom with your students. It doesn't have to be with the kid who might be in your class for guidance in your office for guidance counseling. It can be the concept of that trauma-informed care. It can almost become a philosophy in the way you look at life. Okay, so you're trying to get to work, and the person driving in front of you is slowing down, back and forth, in and around traffic. And what's our first thought when we see somebody do that? What do we think? That they're drunk. What? Huh? They're texting. Yeah. Yeah. But we think, what is wrong with you, right? Why are you tailgating me? What is going on with you? It's more along the lines of, you jerk. What's wrong with you? Why are you driving like this? Do we step back, but can we think to ourselves, I wonder what's going on in their lives that is making them drive in this manner right now? So it's a simple switch in our head. Sometimes it's a hard switch to make, because by nature we are narcissistic people, and we tend to think about the world and how it affects us and how it revolves around us. So trauma-informed care suggests that we kind of step out of ourselves a little bit and look into what is motivating somebody else's behavior. It's not always about us. Right now I work at a facility for Heartland Family Service. I work at Youth Links. Anybody know what Youth Links is? Anybody heard of it? Got a few people? Okay. Youth Links deals, for those of you who don't know, Youth Links is a facility for adolescents from ages about 10 to 18, close to when they get aged out of the system. The kids that are placed with us have what's called a 3B docket. A 3B docket in juvenile court means that they have done something to violate the law. It can be as simple as truancy on up to, we have kids there who have felony gun charges, felony drug charges, assault charges. We have boys and girls mixed. Well, I mean, they don't program it together, but it's a facility that has boys and girls. Most of the time, not every time, but most of the time, the kids that come into our facility that have been in trouble with the law also are coming from families with a 3A case. And you all probably know what the 3A case is, right? Child abuse and neglect on behalf of the parent. Does that surprise us? It shouldn't. I think the difference between working with the kids that Carrie was talking about, and she's talking about those early developmental years, she's right. If you have that little one who's on the floor dysregulated, as she said it, or throwing a temper tantrum, as we might label it, we tend to want to pick them up, soothe them, help them calm down. We don't expect, generally, a child of that age to have any type of self-regulating behaviors. We do, however, tend to expect older teenagers to somehow miraculously have these self-regulating behaviors. We expect different behaviors from them. But if we look at what we're talking about with trauma and all the wonderful descriptions that Carrie gave us about what trauma is, how can we be expecting that 16 or 17-year-old who has a lifetime of trauma, it may not even be an incident of trauma that happened in those early years, they might be living a lifetime of trauma. How do we expect them to be able to regulate themselves? Moreover, she talked about a 4-year-old. If a 4-year-old has just scratched your face and pulled your hair, we don't tend to want to pick them up and cuddle them at that time, right? What do you do with the 17, 18-year-old who's like 5 feet taller than you, it feels like, and, you know, at least as broad, and they're yelling and screaming and calling you every name in the book and telling you they're going to kill you. And we don't feel really a lot like consoling them either, do we? But they deserve the same type of trauma-informed intervention as those little kids do. It's going to look different, but they still need it. Does that make sense? Anybody think of, I'm sure anybody in your classroom that you can think of has those issues? What do we tend to do when we see that? Sorry? I heard you.
Send them to the principal.
We send them to the principal's office. We kick them out of class and send them to the principal. What does the principal do? Calls mom, what?
Kicks them out of school.
Kicks them out of school. Okay. What are some other things that happen? What's our expectation? What do we want them to do?
No powers allowed, or no violence tolerated in school, so law enforcement's called.
Mm-hmm.
And then they'll start their record if they hadn't had it before.
Absolutely. How traumatizing is it for law enforcement to be called on a teenager? How many times by that point in time in life do you think that teenager's had law enforcement called on them? So it's just one more time that this kid is being, if they resist, and even if they don't resist, sometimes police officers can be a little aggressive. And so even if the child, especially if the child resists, so once again now we have this cycle of the police coming in, uniformed, armed, handcuffs, putting their hands on this kid. What's some of the history that we think might be going on with that kid? Carrie gave us a lot of examples of abuse that can happen in a family. What might have been happening in that boy's family when they were little? Now we're 16, 17-year-old adult. We're not respecting authority. We're not sitting still like we're supposed to. Sent to the principal, kicked out of the class again, sent to the principal's office again. Principal calls the police again. What might this kid been experiencing at home? Absolutely. So we probably have a pretty good idea that there's been some type of physical abuse that's gone on at home. And so sometimes unknowingly, what we do is we just continue that cycle. Because is the kid at a point, if we go with what Carrie taught us earlier about where they are with their cognitive and emotional development, just because they're in a grown-up body doesn't mean that they have that cognitive processing yet. So the kid, this 18, 16-year-old kid is not sitting there going, yes, I did tell, I did call Mrs. Johnson the B word again. So I guess I should be kicked out of the classroom. That's right. I deserve this consequence. They don't have that reasoning. If they did, they wouldn't be in the position that they're in now. I'm going to show you a video. It's on YouTube. It's called Boston 24/7. It's only about an 8 or 9 minute video. And I will tell you that I have a hard time watching this video. Every time I watch it, Carrie showed us a lot about what happens to our bodies when we're under stress. This is what happens to my body when it's under stress. This gets my blood boiling. But we'll watch it and then we'll get some feedback from you guys and see what you guys think.
I'm not going to change the world, but I hope I'm making a difference.
Here's all my early dismissal students across the street.
With summer coming, Madison Park's principal, Chuck McAfee, knows that some students find warm weather especially distracting.
Sir, what are you doing? It seemed like a good idea, but where do you really belong? All right, let's get there.
Being the principal means being consistent, being fair, and about communication.
Not a bad idea, though.
You have to have a really good sense of humor to be successful at this.
Sure. What's right here? Okay, he's looking around, walks right up. Look at this. He puts the gun right directly on the camera. Thinks that nobody's gonna see it.
That's unbelievable. Sometimes it's not always fun. These are young people, And so we do have rules.
Let's go. No hats. Basic rule. We like to think that you're in school to learn. It's just one of the rules that we're trying to work with.
He took my hat. My hat was on the table. It was not on my head. Why would I walk around and put a hat on my head?
Let me go up and see him. You wait here.
This student is angry that his hat was confiscated by one of his teachers. A minor incident at some schools.
How we
But
doing?
at Madison Park, Chuck McAfee knows things can quickly spin out of control.
I put my hat on the table. Other teachers didn't have a problem with that. Why did he have a problem with it?
Little issues that's going on here that I'm not getting.
It reflected me.
See, I mean, I'm trying to figure this out. There's always two sides of the stories. I mean, I can't imagine why someone come down to my office about just his hat. He wasn't wearing his hat.
Yeah.
Why did the teacher take my hat? I don't know.
He had his hat. He left his hat in a place it wasn't supposed to be. I took his hat.
What's the point?
He doesn't really perform at any kind of acceptable level. He caught a real nasty attitude about it.
Why do you want to leave school?
Yeah, I know. He can be lax about his hat and get his hat at the end of the school day.
Or you said at lunchtime?
Well, see, I'm at lunchtime if I'm a nice guy and you don't treat me bad. When you leave here,
anything?
yeah, he called me all kinds of names. He was swearing at me and everything before he was leaving. He called, no, you know me, but before he left here, I was all kinds of, MFAS type
Oh, I
stuff.
said, all right. How we doing? Come on. Please. How we doing?
The longer you do this, you get a sixth sense. If I get it right, I'm gonna find out the root of the problem.
Now,
want my hat back.
all right, here's what I want to tell you. Now, how old are you?
I'm 18.
And see, that's the tough part. And when you get 18, you're like grown and it's hard to deal with you because you're a young adult.
If my hat was small enough to fit in my pocket, I would put it in my pocket. Now, he's just trying to do this to show me that he got power over me, this and
That's
that.
what I thought it was. Honestly, you got upset. That's what I got. That's what I got. All right. I was trying to figure out what was this about. It's not about the hat. You feel like you didn't get that much respect. All right, come on. I want to try to keep you in school, so I got the point, the teacher got the point, you got the point. We have to straighten this out with your teacher.
Hold my hat.
Hold on, we're not finished. Don't walk away.
Come on home, yo. Come on, man.
Don't go home over your hat. Hold on. I just know from experience, sometimes these little things can turn into bigger things if you don't do the right thing. This is your third high school. I'm trying to make sure that this year is somehow successful. Because you're going to get an education. All right, let me bring you over here. Let me go get your hat.
Principal McAfee convinces this angry student to sit down with the teacher who took away his hat and try to work it out.
Hi, this is Mr. Wilkins.
I want these two people to communicate and solve this problem.
Anything to say? Yeah. How come you only decide to take my hat, her hat on the table, and then rather than that you could have just been like, yo, Will, put the hat in the locker.
I don't like that tone. I don't like that tone.
That's what you're gonna get if you're gonna do
No, that's not the tone I'm gonna get because you're not following the rules. If the hat is sitting around, I'm gonna
Where I come from, yo, adult, no adult, yo, if you're gonna treat somebody like that, how you expect me to talk to you?
Okay, Wilkins, here's the deal. Here's the deal. The rule is no hats. If I find out, the rule is no hats.
Hey, yo, man, what the man? You really begin to piss me off, dog. You're over here running your mouth and doing this thing, thinking that your rules this and that. Listen to me closely, alright? I don't care about you. I don't give two about you. All I wanted was my damn hat. You have no right to take my hat off no table. If I put my hat on the table, you have the right to be like, well, I don't want that hat there. Put it in the locker. I don't put it in the damn locker. I'm gonna ask somebody so I can put it in the locker. You don't come to my table. Let go of me. Yo, don't put your hands on me. Yo. What the hell, man? What the hell, man?
It's a tough world out there for young people. They feel very vulnerable. When they feel disrespected, we're in a lot of trouble. They do things sometimes that don't make any sense.
Sometimes it's so easy.
You know, when you're dealing with young people.
Didn't have to explode.
After his attempt to make peace between teacher and student backfires, Chuck McAfee has to clean up the mess.
You gotta see his hand, he needs a nurse. See his hand. He's gonna have to end up having to pay for this. This way.
When things really mess up, it's my fault.
Hold your hand up.
The buck stops here.
Okay.
What happened?
I'm trying to talk to him, and he refused to let me talk. And then he get me aggravated because he's talking to me like I'm a first grader.
All right, so now you're aggravated. So then you turn around, get mad, and punch the window?
Yeah. He making it seem like I'm stupid.
Okay.
You need a stitch in it.
I don't pay for the window. Listen, my mom can't pay for that window. I got 5 little brothers. And my mom work at 2 jobs, and she can't hardly pay the rent.
Then wait a minute. Then we'll probably talk about some kind of restitution. We'll find a way. All right?
Thank you.
Okay.
It's very hard to be a teacher because they deal with everything. But they got the heart to do this.
I thought this one was going to be an easy one. What happened?
He had a tone that I didn't like and I mentioned it. And he went left and he went bad. And I feel real bad now. I mean, I'm like...
I know. Let me have this. I thought this one would have been an easy one. I don't know what the conversation was, but I know that nobody likes to feel good when kids get angry and put their hands to windows.
Yes, sir.
All right, so, I don't know. It's about communication. Sometimes we hit it, sometimes we don't. But if they end up doing this, then we lose.
Yeah.
That's all. Well, no, my mistake. I thought we could work this out. Sometimes it doesn't work. Damn.
What do you guys think? At what? We mad at the kid? Why are we mad at the teacher? He just wanted him to follow a simple rule. We have a rule, there's no hats. He simply wanted him to follow the rule. Why are we mad at the teacher?
He escalated the whole thing. He could have handled it as an adult.
Okay, teacher escalated and could have handled it as an adult. Any other thoughts?
The principal should have been there, and also the kid's body language was such that he wasn't ready to talk about anything. He was still, you could see when he was going to talk, he was still really mad. So you could tell it wasn't going to go well.
Good. Other thoughts?
That was a possession that had value to that kid, and the teacher didn't acknowledge that.
Good.
The student kept saying, listen, listen, listen.
And I think the student felt that he was using his power over him.
Absolutely. Get your hand up.
Oh, I think Carrie referenced Dr. Perry's.
Yeah, I love Dr. Perry.
He was trying to deal with him rationally, but that
Yes.
child was not able to be
Mhm.
rational because
Right.
of his trauma.
Right.
She has a big situation at home with 5 little brothers.
Very
and their mother
good.
works 2 jobs and they can't have their rent and they probably don't have food and a whole bunch of other things. And he probably takes care of those little brothers.
Yes, absolutely. He is probably the man of the house. Absolutely. Any of you work with foster kids? I know Carrie said she's got a couple of foster kids. I don't know what your capacity that you're working with foster kids, but I know that when the kids come into my facility, they do not have a Gucci set of luggage. Their belongings are generally in a trash bag. And that's what they cart their life in around from facility to facility to placement to placement. And so something as simple as a hat can be extremely important. Okay. But can we agree this probably really isn't too much about the hat, right?
You could have had that whole scenario without any words and body language alone between the two of them, because it's spoken thousands. They were both into being angry at each other, power from one side, anger from the other.
Did Will have a legitimate question? I mean, because when Will came in, and even though definitely he really was not ready yet, the conversation, in my opinion, certainly, and obviously you guys share the same, the conversation was not ready to be had yet. especially without some type of mediator. I think I also tend to get very angry with the principal because shouldn't have left that dynamic alone yet. But at least Will, you have to give Will a lot of credit. He was willing to come in and sit in that teacher's office. And initially when he sits down, if you look at his body language is pretty open. I mean, he's pretty laid back on that couch. His arms are at his side. He's kind of ready to talk. And he asked a question. Why could, what was her name, Susan or Sally or somebody like that, why could she have her hat on my desk but I couldn't? It's a kind of a legitimate question, you know? Huh? It could have been that. What was the teacher's reason? It wasn't even about, he didn't like his tone of voice. And when the principal first goes and talks to him too, it's, well, he wouldn't put the hat, we have a rule about no hats, you know, and he's just one of those kids that doesn't do very well anyway. You know, those weren't his exact words, but it was something to that extent that he was already very much dismissing this kid. We're going to talk a little bit, kind of based on, we're going to refer back to this a couple of times, but any of you ever heard of the philosophy called collaborative problem solving by Ross Greene? Okay. Collaborative problem solving says that there's 3 plans. Okay. And I always get A and C mixed up, but one of them is planned ignoring. Okay. We're just going to try to ignore the behavior. Hey, if the behavior at that point in time is not life-threatening, if we're not distracting the classroom so badly that nobody else can concentrate, or if we're looking at the classroom and we see that whatever it is that the kid is doing, maybe it's driving us nuts, you know? I mean, I sit in group with these kids all the time, and they might be doing something that just is like grating on my nerve, but as I look at the rest of the group, if the other kids aren't paying him any mind and it's not distracting, that's my problem. And I can use some planned ignoring at that time, okay? Or maybe it is mildly disruptive or something, but I can make a choice. Do I need to address this right now? Do I need to make an issue of this right now? Or can I choose to ignore the behavior and hope maybe that it will extinguish? Or is this a conversation I can have with the kid after class in private? Because respect was a really big thing for Will, right? He's talking to me like I'm a first grader, like I'm a kid. It's terribly, terribly important for kids that are caught up in the juvenile justice system who are living, I mean, maybe a little bit of profiling here or stereotyping, but I think we could probably guess that Will maybe has some gang ties. He's got some violence going on, right? Because he's so quick to erupt. Saving face is extremely important for kids who are caught up in the juvenile justice system or who are living in a world of violence. They have to be tough, okay? They can't show weakness. And so is this a discussion I can have with this kid outside of the classroom, not in front of his peers, where he has to save face? Because then all I've done is created a power struggle, okay? Maybe this kid and I don't get along for whatever reason. Maybe we're going to talk about triggers too, but maybe I trigger something for him. Maybe I represent someone to this kid. And for whatever reason, I've never been able to kind of mesh with this kid or bond with this kid. But I know that Joey over here, you know, the science teacher, has a really good relationship with Will. Maybe I'll go talk to Joey and see if Joey would talk to Will about this issue. Or maybe Joey, Will, and I can sit down and talk so that Will has someone who he already trusts and kind of feels like is an advocate for him. This is all talking about trauma-informed care, okay? We're going to look beyond Will's behaviors, and we're going to look at the backstory, and I want to figure out how to help Will without re-traumatizing him, okay? Does this mean that we let Will get away with his explosion and breaking the window? Because poor Will, he's, you know, helping support those 5 kids, and Mama's got 2 jobs, and this is his 3rd high school. Poor Will. We're not going to make Will pay for the window. Is that a good solution as well? No, of course not. But the one thing the principal did do right in this, which is a very trauma-informed aspect, is, okay, we'll figure out some way for you to take responsibility and accountability for your actions. We'll figure it out so it doesn't cause more trauma to your family and to you by expecting your mom to dish out $1,000 for a window. We'll work it out. So there's still consequences. There's still accountability for our actions. There's still taking responsibility for what we do. But we don't have to throw the kid down on the floor and handcuff him and cart him away and charge him with property destruction. Okay? There's two different ways of handling it. Okay? So with collaborative problem solving, here what we want to do is we want to work together, and that's what he did. We can't ignore it, right? We talked about the planned ignoring. Can I ignore it for now? Can I address it later? What we just did there was some negotiation, some collaboration. What is some give and take that we can do here? Okay? And collaboration means that both people are satisfied with the outcome. Okay? Each person is going to have to give up a little something, obviously. But when we collaborate and cooperate and work together, that means that both people are walking away okay with what's going on. Okay? And it is possible to do that even in a situation like that. Okay? The plan C part of it, if I have my plan A and C right, I think plan C is planned ignoring actually. But the other plan is to come across with that very authoritative, let's call the police and get him out of here. I'm right, you're wrong. Okay? That's our old model, that's our traditional model. I am the adult, I am the teacher, I am the therapist, I am the cop, I am the parent, I am the whatever, and I will tell you what to do, and you are just to sit there and passively do what I told you to do because I'm the grown-up. Or I have the initials after my name, or I have the college education. Trauma-informed care is more collaborative and cooperative. It's looking more to working together to help the kid be successful. Okay? Doesn't necessarily mean that the kid's going to do what I want him to do, but can we come to that agreement to help him move forward? Because now Will's going to be able to stay in school, right? If the principal had opted to not collaborate, not work with him, and not approach this in a trauma-informed approach, Will could be working on his 4th school for the year. Okay, and then nobody wins. Nobody wins. So we look at Will and we say, not what's wrong with you, but what has happened to you. What is your backstory? And what can we do to help you move forward? Any other final thoughts about that particular clip?
I wonder, with like, I know the Lincoln high schools have resource officers, so they always have an officer in the school. And I couldn't tell from this if they had to call somebody in, or if there's a resource officer that would be able to, like in Lincoln, work with them one-on-one to diffuse that situation. Because I know that changes things if they have to call the police in, or if they're already there and have a relationship with the kids.
Absolutely.
What does that do with this?
I don't know if they had actually called the police in, or I'm going to assume that those were resource officers that were already in the school. But that definitely makes a difference. And it doesn't matter if it's a resource officer. Again, it could be the janitor. You know, it could be the garden guy who takes care of the football field. You know, that's where we want to look in. Who can we call to come in and talk with this kid and help de-escalate this kid? Okay.
I was just thinking that it didn't seem realistic to me that Will would have said, we got 5 more kids at home, my mom's got 2 jobs, that would most likely go unsaid. And so this kid is all upset, and the principal is starting to talk about how he's going to have to do restitution. Didn't seem like a good time to bring that up in the first place. And then having, I don't think kids would normally reveal that kind of personal information, and so that could just cause another reaction of anger, because now you're telling me I have to pay for something.
I think the timing was probably a little off, but at least when Will did give that information, at least the principal was able to back down a little bit. But I agree with you. I've always thought the timing was a little off there. Surprisingly enough, kids do tend to reveal that information because to them it's the norm. This is just my life. This is just how it is. This is my reality. This is what's going on. What kids I have found do tend to hide is when there is actual, a lot of times when there's actual abuse going on. They will tend to hide that, especially if they're younger, and that goes back to a lot of what Carrie talked about. It's that bond, right? But unfortunately, if people like Carrie, other interventions don't get into place with those little ones, by the time I get them, there's still that bond, but they are a little older and a little wiser. And so now their conflict becomes, do I protect my parents or do I throw them under the bus? Okay, and now they go back and forth. So the undying loyalty at some point in time in their lives, and it's going to be different for every kid depending on the trauma that they're going through, at some point, sometimes that undying loyalty starts to waver. Okay, we therapists call that cognitive dissonance. Okay, it just means that up here that they're putting the two pieces together. And so sometimes they'll disclose the information, sometimes they won't. It depends on whether or not they want to get their parents in trouble. Okay. A lot of times, too, why they won't disclose the information is if there's younger siblings at home, they don't want the younger siblings taken out of the home if they know that there's abuse going on, because they know that's what will happen. So in their mind, they're protecting their younger siblings because they know if the parents get yanked, if the parents get charged, something happens, all those kids are going to get yanked. And so sometimes it's to protect the siblings as well.
So in his case, you think he would say that because he didn't want them to take him to juvenile, because he did have those 5 brothers or whatever at home?
That would be my guess. I think he also had some semblance of respect for the principal. Just because he was willing to talk to the principal to begin with. The principal, Will was on his way, he's got nothing to lose. He's on his way out the door, so what? Okay, so high school number 3, big deal. He's probably only going to school because he's compelled to go to school by law. Okay, and so he gets kicked out again, no big deal for him. Okay, so he's out the door. And that principal was able to talk him into at least staying and trying to talk to that teacher. So I'm going to guess, too, that there's some semblance of a relationship already going on there, which kind of probably helps elicit that information. Your thoughts?
I was really surprised he didn't stay with the teacher and mediate that.
We have a no hats rule at our facility as well, and we are trying to teach at our facility some semblance of social skills, okay, because a lot of these kids don't have a lot of social skills. So we do encourage, no swearing, there's no sagging, you're not wearing your pants, you're not wearing your gang colors, you're not wearing hoodies, those types of things, which is often met with a lot of resistance. But there was I was walking into the room where I do groups, and there was a young African-American boy, I shouldn't say boy, young man. At the time, I probably guessed him 17, 18 years old. He was just new. I mean, he had just gotten there earlier that day. I very rarely will ever come down with that authoritative, you will follow this rule because I said so. I mean, that's just not going to get you anywhere. Relationships, collaboration, cooperation, all of that is what's going to get you those inroads to getting that kid to cooperate with you. But obviously there's some safety issues where, if there's a safety concern, there is definitely a time, for that, okay, this is not going to happen. So I'm not saying that we don't, Johnny comes into school waving a gun. We're not going to go, oh, Johnny, would you please put the gun away? We're going to take some immediate action. So we have to be sensible about this. But the kid's mouth was just going, I mean, it is every cuss word out of your mouth, that you could even think of was coming out of his mouth. And I was talking to one of our other therapists, and I just kind of said, geez, language, can you just kind of tone it down a little bit? What do you think his reaction was? Oh, man. I started getting called every name in the book, and I'm a grown you-know-what man, and who are you to speak to me? I mean, he just went on and on and on and on. So some of the direct care staff wanted to start correcting his behavior. I'm like, no, it's okay. I did it. It's my mistake. I didn't even bother to introduce myself to him, and I'm trying to tell him to watch his language. Okay, so it was my bad. Was his behavior okay? No. But that's that whole concept again, thinking back of not what's wrong with you, and not who are you to speak to me that way. I'm the adult, I'm the staff. But like, okay, obviously I triggered something here, so I'm gonna step lightly for a few minutes. He wasn't threatening me, he wasn't coming at me, he never moved off the couch. It was just the mouth. So he leaves, and I'm like, whew, I got him in group in half an hour. This will be good. because we only had 4 or 5 kids at the time. Well, they were going to school off campus, but so I was kind of sweating it, thinking, what am I going to do here? How am I going to ingratiate myself to this young man who I have obviously significantly unintentionally offended? Well, by the time he came back into group, he was calmer. And that's another thing that you're going to see it's up and down and up and down and up and down. And you never know which one you're going to get. Well, he came back into group and he was much calmer. And we were just sitting and we were just I don't remember what the topic was that day, but we were talking. Pretty soon he starts sharing that mom's a drunk, his words, not mine. Mom's a drunk. He has some younger siblings at home. The reason he got picked up was for truancy. Like I said, he was 17, 18 years old. I think he was closer to 18. And the only reason he got picked up was for truancy. He kept skipping school. Why do you think he was skipping school? Watching the other kids. Making sure mom wasn't passed out in the driveway. Trying to make sure that the other kids weren't yanked from the home. So he's taking care of mom. He's making sure the younger kids are getting to school, that they're fed. He paying for his own phone bill, was helping to pay rent on the very small apartment that they were living in. Now, granted, he was not necessarily doing it by illegal means. It's amazing that he only got picked up for truancy because he had some gun charges, but those were not hadn't been adjudicated yet. So he's obviously living a criminal lifestyle, okay? But he's very much in survival mode. And so I want to come in, someone who he's never met, and tell him to watch his language. When in the back of his mind, he's wondering, did the kids have lunch today when they went to school? Did they even get breakfast? Where's mom? Is mom passed out? So he has this whole world of adult questions and situations that he's dealing with. And I wanted to tell him to watch his language. That's that idea of trauma-informed care. And then, after we talked, and we'd been in group for a little while, then I was able to say to him, hey, George, gotta kind of watch the language around here, though. You're right, I'm sorry, my bad, I'll watch. Great, thanks. Because now I had permission to do that. I'd listened to him, I'd validated him as a person, I'd understood his story, and now I had earned the right to be able to ask him to kind of watch his language a little bit. Okay. What are things that trigger us? Just everyday people, what's something that might trigger a reaction from us?
Disrespect.
Okay. What else?
Smells.
Smells? Good smells or bad smells? Either or, because it's subjective, right? Okay. What else triggers us?
Danger.
Danger? Mm-hmm. A person could? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Bad news, circumstances, yeah. Mm-hmm. Little noises, yes, yeah, yeah. Do we all, hopefully as professionals, have adequate coping skills to deal with those things that trigger us? Hopefully we do. Maybe not perfectly every day, but hopefully we do. The kids that we're dealing with have a lot more significant triggers, and they don't have the skills to deal with it. So one of the things that we can do is help them to build those skills. The first thing that we have to do is go back and try to figure out, can we figure out what's triggering this person? Okay, can we kind of, as we're helicoptering our classroom, and we see that every time Sally slams her book shut, George yells. Okay, so can we kind of maybe start to see a correlation? We don't need to know why it triggers, right? But can we start to maybe see a correlation? And then what can we do about a situation like that?
Ask Sally not to slam the book shut.
Absolutely. We can ask Sally. What else can we do?
Find out why it bothers George that the book slammed.
We can just ask. Now, they're not always going to tell us, but sometimes just the very fact that we ask a kid, hey, what's going on with you? You doing all right? That sometimes can open up floodgates, because so often they're running into people that are telling them, you will do this, you will do this, you will do this, and very few people step back and say, well, how come this is, I don't get this, I've noticed this. Wow, think about that powerful. When somebody walks up to you and says, hey, I noticed the other day, sometimes we feel really good, like, oh, wow, I'm not invisible. Might feel creepy sometimes, but most of the time we feel like, wow, I'm not invisible. That's really cool. And most of the time these kids feel very, very invisible until they do something wrong, and then everybody wants to tell them what they did wrong. Ever been in a car accident where somebody's like rear-ended you? Okay, so you're sitting at a stop sign, any other stop sign, doesn't have to be even the same stop sign, but you see that shortly, you see that car coming up behind you, and you're kind of looking in that rearview mirror. Are they going to stop? Are they going to stop? Right? You might feel a little tense. Okay, that goes with what Carrie talked to us about earlier, being in that constant fight or flight mode. These kids are in constant fight or flight mode. The littlest thing can set them off. Sometimes they don't even know what's triggering them or why it's triggering them. But part of what we can do is sit back and realize something is triggering them. You guys a lot of you are in classrooms full of kids. You don't have time to do some of that one-on-one stuff. Where are some of the interventions that you can go? Who are some of the people that you can talk to that you notice, hey, every time this book slams, George goes off. I don't know what to do about it. George won't talk to me. It seems like it might be kind of serious. Who or how can maybe we get George some help? Okay, just that little bit of investment. Okay. I'm going to show you another video that talks and shows about triggers. I ran across this video actually on a friend's Facebook page. They adopted from Nebraska Children's Home, how old's Maggie now, 8 years ago? And so they still kind of stay active with Nebraska Children's Home. And I think this was getting passed around somewhere. So it's really what it is. It's a very long type of info commercial. Well, very long. It's like 12, 13 minutes long. Info commercial for adoption, to support adoption. But what I want us to look at it with is you're going to see this girl respond in certain situations, but immediately preceding her response, you're going to see her flashback and see what's triggering her. So something that might seem very simple and normal to us, we get this explosive response from these teenagers. And we're like, what in the heck's going on? Something's going on in the backstory. Okay, and this kind of shows us, I think it's a neat example of how those backstories can trigger.
Sometimes someone hurts you so bad.
I don't think you understand me.
It stops hurting at all. Until something makes you feel again. And then it all comes back. Every word, every hurt, every moment. How could you ever understand where I come from? Even if you ask, even if you listen, you do not really hear or see or feel. You don't remember my story. You haven't walked my path. You haven't seen what I've seen. My past defines me. This is who I am. I am unseen, unheard, unwanted. That is what I am, if even I am anything. It seemed like the same thing that held me up forced me down. And the world turned upside down, and order disappeared. Nothing was how it was supposed to be. And a heavy sadness filled my soul. Deeper and deeper I fell within myself. And nothing could draw me out. Trapped in the misery of my life. Lost in the sorrow of my soul. Unable to see the light. Unable to see the dawn. To feel. To hope.
What are you doing picking my fruit?
To dream. And I found the darkest days of my life kept coming. The blackest nights for my soul never stopped. It seemed like it was always nighttime and nightmares, and never morning. And maybe you wonder why, but mostly you try not to think about it, and try to get by, and try to survive. And all the other stuff seems so much like nothing, compared to just wanting the most important things back again. Like wishing you could see your mama's smile again, and hear her sing that one favorite song that always calmed you down when things were all messed up. Or if you couldn't have her back, at least get to take care of your baby brother, 'cause because you know he needs you. And he's gonna be so scared all alone. And who's gonna hold his hand and whisper it'll be alright to him? And who will whisper it to me?
Hi, Zoe. It's so good to have you here. Are you ready to come in?
I know I am helpless, dependent, desperate. But what happens when those you need the most threaten your very existence? I've heard plenty of promises, and they all sound the same. But push hard enough, and sooner or later, they all prove to be empty. The sun comes up every morning, but do you know where? Each place it's somewhere different. It's hard to find east when you keep moving around. But at least it comes. It always comes. I've come to depend on that. And slowly seasons changed around me. And it seemed this time that maybe the world would not be pulled out from under me again. Feet safe, roots starting to grow, little buds of hope forming, slowly attempting to trust this new life.
Hi. Come on over. Let me show you what I got for you. Got you a gift.
I wish someone would tell me it's gonna be okay.
I come home, I swear to God you touch me again, I will kill you.
Touch me! Don't care about that one day, maybe, I feel normal. That I won't always be alone. That I'll have a mommy who will hug me and be strong for me. Because maybe I can't do it all by myself.
Hi, yes. I'm calling to let you guys know that I have room for another replacement. Thank you so much. Yes. The daughter. Okay, I think she'll be at the back.
This, my past, my history, my story, is not my fault. It's not because of me. And doesn't have to be what defines my future. I am lovable. I am worthy of care. And that glimmer of light, it makes all the difference. The glimmers of light give me hope that someday my summer will come.
What are your thoughts? I had a hard time. What emotions does that drag up? I see people wiping their eyes, so I know you got some emotions going on out there. Can you put that little girl's face on any of your kids in your classroom? These are the kids that I work with. That and older, though that's the lives of the kids that I work with. And that's the lives of some of the kids that you have in your classrooms. That maybe just the things that they have done behaviorally hasn't gotten caught up with the law yet, where they would be detained and potentially sent to my facility or to juvenile hall. What do you think some of her behaviors might have been in the classroom? What might you have seen? Defiance. What else?
It looked like she was trying to stay under the radar in there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. She's probably one of those kids that she's not excelling, but probably is not going to fail classes enough because she doesn't want the attention. Do you think she cares about school though? Not at all.
Probably doesn't have a lot of friends.
Mm-hmm. She's got a lot of secrets. We talked about secrets. She's got a lot of family secrets she has to keep. And why does she have to keep her family secrets?
So her brother doesn't.
Mm-hmm. So she doesn't get separated from her brother. So she has to protect the family. How old did you say she is?
9.
Yeah. So she, as an adult, as a 9-year-old, physically, 4 or 5 maybe, depending on how long this stuff's been going on with mom that she's viewing, cognitively and emotionally. And she's having to make adult decisions that I have to protect and take care of my brother because my mother can't do it. So with her, she seems she's got a little edge to her, you know. Why did she throw that radio over that stereo over the deck or whatever that was? Why did she do that? She just a bad kid? Mm-hmm. Did you catch what she said, the voiceover, when that last foster mom was trying to read to her in bed, and she said, if you push hard enough, eventually you will find out that everybody gives up and walks away. So kids are constantly looking for how far can I push and still be loved. You know, even sometimes I think kids growing up in the best of homes, there's some of that limit testing. It may not be to the extent of finding out whether or not to be loved, but it's certainly, you know, how far can I get? Okay, well, with these kids, it's much more drastic. Did you notice the trash bag? Mm-hmm. All of her belongings in the trash bag. So she could sit in school and she might be very withdrawn. Probably what you would see with her, she'd be the one that would pop up with triggers all of a sudden. Because that was a really cool thing that foster mom did, buying her a new dress. I mean, that was really, really nice. And she blew up.
Memories.
Huh?
Memories.
Memories, yeah. Hopefully foster mom here has had some type of training since she's becoming a foster mom, understanding trauma and that type of thing. But to the average person on the street, what might we label her as? She just got offered this beautiful dress, and she throws a fit. I hate you, I hate you. What are we going to say about her? Spoiled, ungrateful, disrespectful, all those things. Trauma-informed care says we look beyond that behavior and wonder if there's something else going on. Okay? And it's hard to do. It's hard to do. I have and this is a simple, it was not simple to her, so I shouldn't say that because I just completely invalidated her experience. I have a 10-year-old at home still, and she had wanted to get her hair cut, and it's her hair. She's got a lifetime of having to conform to norms of society, so she can do whatever she wants to with her hair at this point in time. So she wants to get it cut, cute little cut, but it was the kind of cut, and I kept telling her, if you get it cut this way, because it's so short and it was layers and those chunky layers and everything, I kept telling her, if you're going to do this, we're going to have to make time every morning to do your hair because it's just going to look like a really bad haircut if we don't. So we're going to have to curl it, do stuff with it. Okay, Mom, okay, okay, okay. So for the first couple of days, it was great. We curled her hair. Well, I curled her hair, taking this time. Aren't I a good mom? I work full time, and I'm taking time out of my morning to curl her hair. Oh, good mom. She's lucky to have me. So about 2 or 3 days in, starts coming the resistance. I don't want to curl my hair. Okay, Mandy, this was our agreement because you looked like you just hacked your hair with scissors. This was our agreement. We need to do your hair. Fits. I mean, just absolute fits in the morning. Defiant, crying, probably intentionally being late to come downstairs so we wouldn't have time. So out of my mouth after about a couple days comes, wait for it, most children would be really grateful to have a mother who would take the time to curl their daughter's hair in the morning. Yes, I said it. Been in the therapy world for 20 years, and yes, out of my mouth came the statement. She's crying, I'm crying. And then the real tears started. You know, there's kind of a difference. I mean, we all have different cries. Well, the different cry came, and her heart was broken. I'm like, okay, deep breath. Called into work, called the director. I don't know what's going on, but I'm going to be a little late, and I got something I deal with. So we sit down, and what she starts telling me is that the kids at school were teasing her and calling her an old lady and telling her that with her hair curled that way, she looked like an old lady. And apparently they had been teasing her unmercilessly for the last couple of days. Okay, so now I feel like this big. But even in our everyday life, there's an example of looking at the story behind the behavior. I was very focused on her behavior. There was no planned ignoring going on. There was no collaboration going on or cooperation. It was, I am your mother, and we are doing this. Okay? She was devastated. I mean, she was going to school being teased on the playground by all the girls and boys. But when you take the time, we sat down, took the time, understanding the backstory. We didn't curl her hair anymore. We figured out how to put it in headbands until it all grew out. But what a simple thing. And we had a week of this because I was focused on her non-compliant behavior because it was all about me and needing to get to work on time. But when we sit down, if I had bothered to ask her, I never even asked her. If I had bothered to ask her from the very beginning, what's going on? Why are you fighting with me on this so much? She might have been more likely to tell me. Okay, but instead, we go through this week-long issue. Okay? So even in our everyday lives, we can take the time to just kind of stop and think and check things out. Okay? And we still had to cooperate and collaborate. We still had to work on it. So it wasn't like, again, she got away with not, because that's that big thing with trauma-informed care. People think, oh, that just means since they've been traumatized, we're not going to give them any consequences for throwing the stereo over the balcony. Okay. Any other thoughts about the movie now that we've had a chance to take deep breath? Any thoughts about the video? Are we still traumatized by it?
It would be a great foster parent.
I think it depends upon the age, and I think it depends upon their role in the family. If they're one of the older kids, or maybe like the oldest female, or maybe the oldest male, if they've been in any type of provider or caretaker role, a lot of times it's more concerned about what's going to happen to the younger siblings. I think the younger you are, then it's more that, we go back to that attachment that Carrie was talking about earlier, where it's that bond. Just kind of some other resources to think about if you're interested in investigating this a little bit more, and then we're going to go through the PowerPoint. I got some that I handed you. There's some statistics in there, but I hate starting with statistics. So there is with the trauma-informed care movement, there's a lady called Tonier Neen, Tonier, and her last name is Neen, Neen. And if you type into, I'm going to pronounce it wrong, Vimeo, okay, whatever this one was just on, and if you type in healing Neen, as in healing someone, healing Neen, it's a 45-minute long video. She chronicles her life. She was horribly, horribly abused as a child. and which then led her to, she also became a meth addict, prostitution for 20 years. And her purpose in doing the video is to bring awareness to how the system can tend to re-traumatize. Okay, so the principal in our first Boston 24/7 had the option to re-traumatize by calling the police and having Will hauled off by the police for damaging the window. He chose a more trauma-informed care route. And so she chronicles her life and talks about how she wished that different people that had crossed her path had maybe could have seen beyond her prostitution, beyond her drug use, beyond her homelessness, and then maybe been offered more of that help. She has 6 children, 5 of whom are in foster care. She was able to maintain custody of her youngest child. She actually just came and spoke at our all-staff meeting for Heartland Family Service. At the end of her video, now I will tell you, if you watch it, she's very graphic with her description. So it is not for children to watch or teenagers, because she's pretty graphic with some of the sexual abuse and rapes that she endured. At the end of her video, though, which I think is so powerful, and what I challenge all of you at when you look at a child in your classroom who is the one that you would tend to want to, go send off to the principal's office, just get them out of here. She has a big picture of one of her mugshots in the back, and she's addressing police. I think she's in New York, addressing like police officers, probation officers, judges. And what she asks the audience is, if you saw this person come into your precinct, into your jail, into your courtroom, were you able to see the person that stands before you now? And I think that's that whole concept of trauma-informed cares. When you look at a person, can you look beyond what they are doing now and understand that there's a trauma history there, and can you see a future for them? Or do we just pigeonhole them as, oh, that's just a bad kid. She's just a meth addict. He's just a gang member. There's a reason that they're doing these things. Okay, so that would be one example. That would be one resource. Any Lifetime movie buffs out here? Anybody going to admit it? I'll admit it. Okay. 2 movies. They're older movies. Homeless to Harvard. Anybody seen that one? Homeless to Harvard. True story. And in fact, you can get online. I show that actually in my groups a lot with my girls. And she's actually written a book. The movie was actually based on the book that she wrote. And from everything that I can tell, it's pretty detailed. But she talks about how she's never in school. Well, the reason she's never in school is because mom is schizophrenic. Mom is a meth addict. Dad is a meth addict as well. And I can't, not for the life of me, think of her name. Who's seen it that can remember her? I can't remember the character's name. Anyway, she's often staying at home to make sure that mom's okay, to make sure that mom's on her meds, okay? She goes to class. They show her going to class one day, and she's young. She's probably about the age of the girl that's in this last video here, and she talks about the fact that her hair stinks and her hair itches from the lice. She stinks because they don't have any running water in their bath. She doesn't know how to wash or care for herself. But yet we would want a child like that to sit in class and focus and take notes and pay attention and stay awake when she's trying to figure out, why does my head itch, and is mom still going to be at the apartment when I get back, and where's dad, and okay, so that's the backstory. And she gets removed from the home, and she gets placed in different detention facilities. And one of the ladies in one of the detention facilities looks at her and says, you just have a behavior problem. That's your problem. And that's so far from what her real problem is. So you can watch the movie for entertainment, but you can also watch the movie from the aspect that it's a true story and it's chronicling this young lady's life. The other one, Gracie's Choice. Anybody seen that one? Gracie's Choice? Okay. Again, now this kind of goes back to your question over there about siblings. Mom is I think it's a cocaine addict, but mom's a cocaine addict, younger brothers and sisters, and Gracie is the one that takes care of the kids, makes sure they go to school, makes sure they're fed. She does all of that, and mom's going from one place to another and dragging the kids along behind. And every time the police show, just like in our video, mom is screaming, Gracie, do something. Gracie's a teenager, okay? And so she goes to school. Thank you. She's going to school, and she wants, and all the teachers want her to do is study, study, study. She's got to get home to get her kids, to get the younger brothers and sisters home from school. Okay. Again, a true story. You can look her up online as well, and it chronicles her life. So yeah, some really good stories of recovery there, and all three of those really show the importance of looking from that trauma-informed care aspect.
Can you repeat the first one that you said, the interesting spelling?
Her name is Tonier, Tonier.
That's a movie.
That's a person. And her last name is Neen, Neen. And the documentary that she did is called Healing, like Healing, like you're going to heal someone, Healing Neen. Because as a kid, her Neen was her nickname. Any other questions?
Was that first video that you showed us with the school,
Mm-hmm.
is that available online somewhere?
On YouTube, and it's called Boston 24/7. And there is a Boston 24/7 Revisited where they kind of go back through and talk about the people that were involved, kind of go back through and talk about it, and it gets analyzed. They came out with that a couple years later. Mm-hmm. Any other questions? Just some of the statistics that are on the front, first couple of pages there. Being abused or neglected as a child increases their arrest as a juvenile by 59%. So the kids that you see that you suspect are being abused or neglected as a child, I'm on the very first page, I'm sorry. Third slide down on the very first page. And 70 to 92% of girls who are incarcerated have experienced some type of sexual abuse or rape. So the kids that you're seeing that are in trouble with the law, there's something that has gone on with that backstory. So now if you walked out of here and somebody asked you, or does anybody remember it's a test? Most of you are teachers, right? So here's your test at the end of the pop quiz, at the end of this time. What's one of the most important phrases you can walk away from thinking about trauma-informed care? What happened to you? Instead of what is wrong with you, what happened to you? Okay. We want to work on gaining cooperation, relationship with these kids versus trying to demand compliance, because we're not going to get compliance if we try to demand compliance. Any other questions? Thoughts? Had any of you ever heard the concept of trauma-informed care before? Had that phrase ever? Okay, good. Good. That's kind of the movement. We can't catch them all when we're little. And so we're trying to catch them when they're adolescents before they become adults and end up making decisions for themselves that really do change the course of their lives. All right. Thank you for your time.